Time to own the Audi you've always wanted, because until February 28th, you can enjoy the Audi A4 with a complimentary style pack, saving you over €4,500. So, all you have to do is choose the color. Call into your local Audi dealer during the 191 sales event. Terms and conditions apply while stocks last.
Blog Talk Radio.
Archangels, ghosts, and Bigfoot, oh my. It's just another night for Supernatural Girls. Real stories, real answers to life's biggest supernatural mysteries. And now, for another exciting interview with paranormal experts from this world and others. Here's your host, paranormal researcher Patricia Baker, on the one, the only, Supernatural Girls.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Supernatural Girls Radio. I'm your host, Patricia Baker. I'm here with my co-host from Tucson, Patricia Kirkman. PK, how you doing tonight?
Well, it's still being a little chilly here, but they say it's getting warmer. I'm going to hold my breath.
Well, it's definitely getting chillier here. We are going to be heading down
right.
into the single digits at night. Not looking forward to this over the next week. It looks pretty darn cold, but we escaped the latest. Yeah, we escaped the latest snowstorm. No, we didn't. And actually, it's weird. We don't have any snow here, which is unusual for New England. No, we don't have any, but we're supposed to get a little bit this weekend. We'll see. The weather's changing. Everything is changing to do with weather right now. So
that's for sure. Look at California, they're underwater again.
See, it's happening everywhere. Now, we've been following Betsy Foss-Lewis, who was a guest on our show, and she's talking about Phoenix Rising. And we did post that story from her and some of her predictions on our Facebook page. So if you haven't seen that, go take a look. There was a photo from space, and it looks very much like a phoenix. It's not a great sign, unfortunately. However, between that, the North Pole changing, the shift that's going on, there's a lot. So go to our Facebook page. Make sure you like and follow us so you can keep up. There's a lot of changes happening very, very quickly. So what's happening in the numbers, PK? What are we looking for here?
Well, you know, what we're really looking for, what's going to transpire, is going to be what we call the blood moon. The lunar eclipse is coming. And one of the things they're talking, the full moon and the lunar eclipse will be the week of the 20th, 21st of January. So we're saying that they're feeling a lot of change. There's a change of pace. They're feeling pulled. And I had to ask somebody, but I'm understanding more things. I feel like I'm getting smarter about some of these things. Well, it's kind of like close relationships of what's going on is what's coming. So get ready. There's going to be some good shifts that are going to go on. And you can't help but feel there's going to be some kind of healings coming out of it. I'd like to think that be the case, because during the super moon situation, the United States is totally, the United States, South America, are totally in for the availability to see the entire eclipse is going to be visible. So that's
so we'll get a front row seat. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. Well, it's about time we got a front row seat instead of the end of the bus.
Yeah, I'm all for it. Hopefully we won't have a cloudy sky. So that'll be interesting to watch.
Thanks for adding that. Thanks for adding that.
Okay.
Cloudy skies on.
No, we don't want a cloudy sky. That's usually what happens here in New England.
Bright and beautiful. That's
you probably have it out there in Tucson. That you always have. So it's we also had another paranormal news segment that was interesting. The CIA has declassified a lot of documents about UFOs and psychic powers. So that's also on our Facebook page. So if you like to do some nighttime reading, there's plenty of it there on that CIA.gov. website, and you can look up all of what they're posting. It should be interesting, and I'm counting on some of my friends to fill me in on the best parts of it so we can report back to you and let you know what they have finally declassified. But it is interesting that they're putting out, as you say, PK, more breadcrumbs for us. They seem to be continuing on in that direction. So I don't think they can continue to hide it. You know, it's so silly because they're like, oh, God, you know, we're waiting for the government to come out and tell us they're real. Oh, please. We already know that. You know our audience knows that. We don't need to be told by anybody.
No. And even when they tell us anything, it's just dribbles and drabs, and people are they think that we're stupid, for God's sakes. So much of this has been ongoing for so long. Give us a break. Just let it out there and let's get it over with. It makes it so much easier for better when you don't have something to hide. Just say it and get it over with.
Yeah, I mean, they're really embarrassing themselves every day that they pretend that we don't know the truth. We know the truth. UFOs are real, aliens are real, interdimensionals are real, and tonight we're going to find out that monsters are real. We have a great guest tonight coming on with us. Jason Offit he's written a great book. It's a fun book, believe it or not. It's scary, but it's fascinating, and he's mentioned monsters we've never even heard of before. And his book is called Chasing American Monsters. Yes, creatures, cryptids, and hairy beasts. So he's going to join us in just a few minutes, and we're going to find out about all of these things that go bump in the night. Oh, my goodness. So happy to have him with us. And, of course, people can contact you at patriciakirkman.com for their numerology for the year, or if they have a specific question, too, right, about business or family, you can figure it out for them. Just sum the numbers. So patriciakirkman.com, and also you can find PK on our website, supernaturalgirls.com. And you can contact PK, and she'll set up a session. She also teaches classes. Don't hesitate to reach out to her. She loves to help people. And I do, too. And now in my toolbox, as you all know, is soul realignment. Very powerful transformational tool. And I've been doing regular sessions with people, and they're very, very excited by the actual real results. And that's what you get with soul realignment. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm also on the website. Send me an email. Happy to talk to you about soul realignment and what you can expect and all the details about it. It's a fascinating process. Andrea Hess, the creator of this, was on our show a month or so ago, and she really filled us in on all the details of how it came to be and why it's so powerful in transformation. So we're offering our tools to you guys, and just don't hesitate to give us an email. Send us an email, and we'll talk to you on the phone. We'll get you set up so that you can get your questions answered, get on the right road. And
well, I have to add that what you give is so great because I had you do it for me, and it's wonderful.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to do that. I was thrilled. And, yes, it's a new lens, don't you think? It's a different lens to look at your entire life. It gives you the eagle's eye view, but then it gets up close and personal at the same time. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was an honor for me to do that for you. So I'm happy to do it. And it's just exciting. Every time I do a session for someone, I learn something new, too. So it's great, great, great work. So if you have a question tonight for Jason, our guest, I'm going to give you our phone number. You can feel free to call in, and we promise to get your question. It's 563-999-3539. Again, it's 563-999-3539. And again, go back to our Facebook page because we have lots more stories there about UFOs that have been sighted and about this whole change that seems to be going on, the Phoenix, as I mentioned, and also there's a story in honor of Jason about the shadow people. Make sure you check that out. These people that appear in bedrooms or in landscapes, and nobody knows really what they are. But we're going to find out every single thing we can about these American monsters tonight. Now, Jason, he is from Maryville, Missouri. He teaches journalism at Northwest Missouri State University. He's the author of 4 previous books on paranormal topics, including Haunted Missouri and Paranormal Missouri. And he also has several novels. He's been interviewed all over internet radio and on Destination America, and he is here with us tonight. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on. This is going to be fun.
Oh, gosh, yes. Now, you have broken all of this out in terms of states. So state by state, you go through and you name all of the monsters and tell the stories of it. It's a terrific book. We just so enjoyed it. It's great.
Well, I'm glad. It was so fun to research and write that book. I've been interested in monsters my whole life, and it was terrific to find a lot of things that I didn't know about. That was fun.
Now you found out that Bigfoot had been sighted in your area where you grew up, and did that start the spark for you for American Monsters?
That started the spark that started was that monsters were real. I've always been a news junkie. I was a newspaper editor for 17 years. But I also was interested in monsters. We had on a local TV show or TV station on Saturday afternoons. They had monster movies and sci-fi movies all day, and I loved watching the monsters. And then then our local newspaper started printing stories about Bigfoot. And I'm like, wait a second, Bigfoot's not real. Why is it in the newspaper? But it was. There was around Louisiana, Missouri, which is over between St. Louis and Mark Twain's town of Hannibal. It was terrorized for a week or so in July of 1973 when a Bigfoot was seen by a lot of different people on a lot of different days, and it was in my newspaper. So I was glued to every word. I couldn't wait for the paper to get in. I looked for Bigfoot stories before I went to read Peanuts. And my mom, it drove her crazy because I grew up on a farm and we were surrounded by cornfields, and I was at those cornfields every day looking for Bigfoot tracks, and that didn't set well with her.
Oh, I find it.
Unfortunately.
But we've heard that Bigfoot is often drawn to grain. That's one of the things that people have shared with us. So you were in the right place.
I was on the opposite side of the state, but if he made it over my way, I was ready for him.
Did you have like a little brownie camera or something like that already set to go?
No, we had a Polaroid, and Mom wouldn't let me take it outside. But I had, even though I had a little backpack with a flashlight in it, a notebook, a couple of sandwiches in case I got hungry, some water, and I was ready to see something, scream, and then run.
Okay, that would have been helpful. Not a lot of evidence, but definitely a hair-raising experience for you. That's cute. Well,
I was like 7 or 8.
Oh, gosh. Well, what an exciting way to live as a child is to be just in love with these monsters. And, some of them did appear not to be so threatening. I mean, they were scary, and that it's something people didn't expect to see. But we've heard about even monsters like Dogman, and that there's really no evidence to the fact that Dogman has attacked anyone. So people see Dogman and get scared out of their wits, but to our knowledge and from the people that we've been talking with about it, they haven't attacked anyone. So that's all good.
Well, that we know of. If there is a Dogman, and I've interviewed a couple of people that I know pretty well who've seen a Dogman up close and personal. So I have
You're cutting out a little bit, Jason. You may need to just adjust your phone a little bit so that we don't keep losing you.
Okay, sorry. I might have leaned it a little bit too far from my face.
Yeah, that
sounds
close
good
like
now.
that. That's perfect. Yes.
Yeah.
So when you talk to your friends who've seen Dogman, what did they say happened? Give us some idea of the stories here.
Well, one story, one was creepier than the other, so I'll give you the less creepy one first. There is a cemetery near Brunswick, Missouri, which is kind of in the middle-ish sort of part of the state. And my friend and a couple of buddies of his from there.
We're losing you again.
Okay, well, they would go to the cemetery to ghost hunt, and it was out in the country, off a rural highway, down a dirt road, up and down a couple of hills, and in between a couple of cow pastures. And one night, my friend Ryan and a friend of his were out there, and nothing much was happening. So they decided, it's about 10:30. Let's just go home. So they drove their pickup down the first hill, and they were going down the second hill, and they noticed that there was something in the road. And they slowed down as they approached it because it was kind of big. And when they got about 10 yards from it, they saw that it was a really large dog. And the dog was down on all fours like it was eating something off the middle of the road, like roadkill or something. And they just sat there for a little bit waiting for it to go, thinking that it would notice the headlights on it and hear the engine and get spooked. But it didn't. They had their windows rolled down and said that they could smell wet dog. Well, the guy driving beeped the horn. The dog turned its head, looked at them, stood up on two legs, turned its body, but kept looking at them, and just walked off the road into the woods.
Wow.
And they paused for just a second because of the shock of it all, but got out of there really fast, as I would as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that big of a deal, but it's still, kind of a threat if there are only two people. But then it stands up and walks on two legs, staring you down. That's a little bit unnerving.
Very.
Okay. Yeah. The other one, he actually saw this entity in town. He worked when he was in college. He worked at a Taco Bell. And he closed for the night. He was an assistant manager, and whenever he'd come home for about a week, he'd go around the back of the house where the basement door opened because they were on a little hill, and he'd stand outside and smoke a cigarette before he went in. And one night he noticed a green glow, and the green glow he realized were two eyes that were staring at him kind of low to the ground. And it would move. He said he never saw its legs move. It's just, he'd be watching it, and all of a sudden it'd be just a little bit closer. And what he noticed was that it was, finally he saw that it was a dog, a really, really large dog with glowing green eyes. He shouted something at it, and it stood up next to a fence that was across the street, and it loped off. And that kind of freaked him out a little bit, so he snuck out his cigarette and went in and relaxed and went to bed. And he and his father went out there the next day to take a look at the fence and see if there was any footprints. They didn't find any footprints, but when my buddy's dad was standing by the fence was up to his head, and his dad's about not quite, but about 6 foot. But when the dog had stood up, its shoulders were the same height as the fence.
Wow, that was really tall then. Oh my goodness, over 6 feet.
It was about 6 feet at the shoulders, and he saw it night after night for about a week. It never stood up on two legs, but it would lay there generally and study him. And the last night he saw it, this really freaked him out because he was outside smoking the cigarette again, like at 3:00 in the morning, and the dog was there again, and the street light across the street that it was under kept flickering. And every time it flickered, it was a few feet closer. and a few feet closer. And it got into the middle of the road, and he was like, nope, that's it. I'm going through the front door every time I come home. I'm not going to come back here anymore. And that's been a few years ago, and nobody in the family has seen it since. As a matter of fact, about 2 years ago they moved.
Yeah, I would too. You know, it's interesting, though, because you have to wonder, at least I do, and I know, PK, you do as well, where are these things coming from? Are they coming from another dimension? Are they here all the time? What do you think, Jason?
Well, I mean, I only say I don't know. I don't know. The things that I do know are that there have been Native American legends about these things. There are stories about dogmen from Europe, Asia, and even Australia. I was reading something today about it. And dogmen, there have been a few, not many, but a few reports from Australia over the years. So these things are a worldwide phenomenon, and yeah, where do they come from? I don't know. I can't really, wrap my head around a species of, I would assume, at least semi-intelligent canines that walk on two legs. I don't know. I think Bigfoot's probably real, so why am I hedging? hedging dogmen?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is
so
fascinating, though.
It's fascinating, and it very well could have a more supernatural explanation than it would. Like a Bigfoot would have I don't think Bigfoot's a supernatural beast, although there are a lot of people who do. But the Dogman, I think, would be a good candidate for that. Yes.
Now you have a story in your book about, I believe it's Dogman, when it went right up to a young boy's window. Was that Dogman?
Yes, that was a Dogman story. He and his family moved to this house that was out in a rural area, and it was kind of ringed. The property was kind of ringed by trees, and they had seen occasionally a large dog on the property that was stray, and they didn't think much of it because it didn't really come up to the house. It didn't harass it at all. It started bothering him. He had a bedroom was on the ground floor, and it was an older house, so the windows were kind of tall. One night, Dogman was the face of a dog in his window, and I mean whatever it was, it would have had to have been about 6 or 7 feet tall to reach that high window. And it didn't speak. It really didn't speak, but he could understand what it was saying to him. So it sounded like he thought it was some sort of telepathy. He was maybe 6 years old, if I remember correctly. And one night his mom was walking by the room and heard him talking. And he was supposed to be asleep. So she looked in and saw this dog face in this boy's open window. And she screamed, and it bolted and ran. And the boy told his mom that it was trying to get him to go outside. It wanted him to go outside and play with it. And that's what it had been trying to. Right. I know. And he had resisted every time, even though he was like, "No, it's a dog. I like dogs. I could go out and play with a dog." His mom saw it. He talked about it a little bit, but his mom saw it, and so she knew it was real. And she, of course, told her husband, and he started carrying on. And
we're losing you again,
Jason. Huh?
We're losing you again. It's hard to hear you. I don't know why. At the break, we maybe have you call back in, and you can get a better connection. But keep going. So
okay.
The father was carrying a gun, and so
the father started carrying a gun because in case that the big dog came back, because that stray-looking large dog. He figured that it showed up, and then this thing showed up, and eventually it did, and he shot it. And the large dog limped away, ran away, limping, and they never saw it, or the little boy never reported the dog man in his window again. So it looks like they possibly got it.
You know, it is interesting that you bring that up, that the dog man was trying to convince him to come outside. It reminds me of a story from the 1800s that was related in one of the Missing 411 books. And you must be familiar with this one, where there was a little girl that was spending the day with her father. He had a logging operation, and she would ride down the hill with the horses, with the logs, and then run back up and then jump back on the wagon again, and she just loved doing that. Well, at one time that this happened, she didn't come back up the hill. She went missing. So her father was, of course, frantic, ran all over the place looking for her, couldn't find her. 2 hunters happened upon him, and they also participated in searching for her. They went out 2 miles from where this took place, and they saw something that in one leap jumped across the river and took off, some big beast on 2 legs. And they went over and they found the little girl alive, thank God. But they questioned her, and she said it was the dog man. You know, it was this wolf, this dog man that took her and gave her berries to eat. And her father said, but, okay, where's your hat? Your hat's missing. She said he ate it. I mean, it's interesting because here we are talking about how dangerous these things might be. And certainly he was able to take her away from that logging site 2 miles without too much time at all. And thank God they found her. They were able to rescue her. But it does make you question, what in the heck are these things doing, and why are they so interested in children? Because the story you bring up in your book is a young boy. So there's, again, here we are with dogmen and children.
Right. And, well,
oops. I think we lost Jason.
I think we did.
Okay, I know he knows to call back in. But gosh, isn't this fascinating? So trying to put the pieces together, PK, I mean, here's another child that was approached and taken. But in the story that Jason recounts in the book, apparently this might have been the same kind of thing that this wolfman was trying to do, was take this child out of his home.
Wonder what it is, the fascination with the children. Is it because it's someone to play with, or they're thinking of them as something that they can raise in their own way?
Yeah, you have to wonder. Jason, I think you're back with us. We were just kept.
Yeah, I sure am. And about why the children are going to be a lot easier to pick up and carry away. Children are also, I mean, why do humans eat veal and lamb?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Maybe that's
it's called very tender and sweet, right?
Oh, that's like out of a grim fairy tale. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, right. I mean, I like those little baby carrots, you know? They're probably terrified of me. Carrot, though, the plant world's terrified of me.
Right. But you are, adding some interesting pieces to these puzzles here, Jason, with the stories that you have in your book. Now, you also talk about some things that we do know about, like gnomes. Tell us a story about the gnomes. What have you encountered with that?
Oh, my gosh. Okay. Yeah. I mean, gnomes. I remember back elementary school, maybe junior high, there was a gnome book that came out, and it was on everybody's coffee table that, at least that I knew of. These things can't be real. I mean, they're legends in Europe. They're just like elves and kobolds and goblins. Yeah, gnomes don't exist, of course. But I talked with a woman named Tammy.
Oh, we keep losing him. Okay, we're going to have to be on the edge of our seats here while Jason calls back in, because I want to hear about the gnomes.
Waiting for the answer.
When I lived in Connecticut, I actually saw one in my house. He was playing with a Christmas ornament, and Yes, and it was funny because I was working with a client and she saw him too, and she was terrified. I thought it was really neat. Okay, Jason, we're on the edge of our seat about Tammy. Tell us what happened. Oh, are you there?
Hello, yes, I am. I've got to do something about my phone. This is not working out well at all. About
that's okay. We'll do what we
about
have
the gnomes. There's a woman named Tammy who lived at the time in Porterville, California. I was writing a newspaper column at the time on just paranormal stories, a weekly column called From the Shadows. And she had read my column, and she's like, I gotta tell you my story. Well, what happened was she and her children moved to a house by the Tool River, just outside of Porterville. It was in a rural area, and their land butted right up next to the river, and it sounded beautiful. There were a few houses in the neighborhood, and there was one old barn. It was more of a shed that was on her property, and it was really kind of weird because she got a bad feeling about the shed. And her children got a bad feeling about the shed. And their animals, they had a dog, had a couple of cats, and some ducks and chickens. And none of them ever ventured near the shed. And
wow.
She thought this was weird, but she found out why one day. Her and her son, her daughter stayed at home. Her and her son went to the grocery store, and they came home, and she opened up the back of the station wagon to get the bags, and she heard a cackle, and she turned around, and standing by that creepy shed was a little man. He was about 2.5 feet tall. He had a dirty beard, long pointed dirty beard, like a gold tunic and brown pants, and a pointed red hat. And he had solid black eyes, and he was staring at her, just laughing in this evil cackle. And she said she could tell that his teeth were all pointed.
Oh.
This absolutely terrified her, and she dropped the groceries and grabbed her son and ran into the house. And in just seconds later, she told her daughters, hit the floor, hit the floor. I don't want anything to see us. And all of a sudden, she heard a screech. And she looked up, and in all the windows she could see, there was that red hat, the pointed hat, rushing window to window. And it sounded like it was screaming as it was running all around the house. And the thing is just like I was talking about the little boy and the dog man, it was an older house, and the ground floor windows were kind of high. a little bit too high for this 2.5 foot tall gnome to, have its hat poking out. Eventually, the screeching and the running and the hat stopped, and she got brave enough to look outside and was able to go out and get her groceries. But that was absolutely terrifying, and she stopped. They moved fairly soon afterward, just because the whole family was scared to death.
I mean, to see something with pointy teeth is never a good sign. And the fact that he was mocking them with his laugh, I mean, this was not a friendly gnome, clearly. And they all had a bad feeling about that shed. I mean, every single one of them, all their animals. So there you go. I mean, there was something evil about this thing. And I guess that's what we've come to understand about gnomes and fairies, that, they're not all nice. So here's an example
they're
of
not
that.
Disney. They are not Disney at all. The story's not over yet. The story's not over yet. I was contacted by a woman her name was Charlie, and she wanted to tell me, because she read that story and she's like, oh my gosh, this is so much like my story. I got to tell you this. And she had also lived in a rural house outside of Porterville, California, next to the Tool River. And it was an old house, and there was also a shed on the property, and she said the shed was kind of weird. And it was her and her husband and their Labrador, and their twins. They were babies. And they moved in, and the house was perfect for them. And her and her husband put a koi pond that was outside. Their bedroom was upstairs, and they put a koi pond in so they could look out on it, when they were up in their bedroom. And everything was really nice. And then some weird things started happening. One, she was outside and heard her husband yelling at her from inside, and she thought it was strange because he'd gone into town for something, and she went inside and couldn't find him. And then a little bit later, he came home. So she couldn't explain that. And then later that same day, she was outside working in the yard and heard a cat. It was like a cat fight. And it was coming from this shed. And she went and got her husband, and they went out there and opened up the shed, and there was like don't mean to get graphic. I'm just going to say it was like 2/3 of a cat was there.
Oh.
Its back legs were gone. Its rear part was gone, and it was still alive. And she begged her husband to do something, and so he went to get a shovel so he could scoop it up so he didn't have to pick it up. And I'm not sure what he was going to do with it after that, but when he came back to the shed, it was gone. And there was no way it could have gone anywhere. No way it could have gone anywhere. But then things started escalating. Their koi started disappearing from their pond. And they figured, it's probably a raccoon. Raccoon's coming, catching our fish, and eating our fish. So we've got to do something about it. So they had a fish tank, so they took the koi and put them in the fish tank inside the house. They also had a couple of lawn ornaments. For some reason, they decided to take them in the house, too, like a mushroom and a garden gnome. Funny, it was a garden gnome.
Yeah.
But they took it inside, and later that night, they heard a screaming. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. They heard a screaming from outside, and they had in a couple of places in the yard, put lights, the motion sensitive lights, and their light was on outside the window.
Ooh.
So she looked outside the window, and there was about a 2 to 3 foot tall person with a dirty, long pointed beard, a little red hat that was pointed, and brown pants. And it was standing at the pond, looking up at her, screaming at her in a language that she couldn't understand. And her husband looked out and saw that as well. And they were like, "Oh my God, what are we going to do about this?" They were totally flummoxed and terrified. And like the gnome in the other story did, this one screamed and started running around the house.
Yeah.
And right. And Charlie went. She's like, I gotta go check on the twins. So she went and checked on her daughters, and the husband realized, oh my gosh, I put in a dog door in the kitchen for our dog, and that little man is big enough to get inside the dog door. So he bolts downstairs, runs toward the kitchen. When he gets toward the kitchen, he sees the dog door being moved in a little bit. So he does, baseball slide into first base, and his foot hits the door. Whatever was there, it hits it, and he has a latch on the dog door so they can lock it up whenever they're gone. So he locks that. But they were convinced that this tried to come in the house. They didn't stay there very much longer either. They moved as any sane person would.
Yeah, because what do you do? It's like when you describe them seeing this thing, staring up at them. Oh my God, what do you do about it? I mean, it's a man, 2.5 feet tall. I mean, what are you going to do? Shoot at it? It's like a real question in your mind. How do you handle this
right,
thing?
And nobody's really equipped to handle a gnome, right? They did call the sheriff's department about an intruder. They didn't say what he looked like, but the sheriff and a deputy came out, and there was footprints about the size of maybe an 8 or 9 year old kid would leave. that were all around the koi pond.
Right.
Right, and then I got that story, and I compared it to the earlier story with Tammy, and I'm like, this is way, way too similar. So I put Charlie and Tammy in contact with each other, and they got together, and they went out to the property, and it was the same property. They had both lived on the same property, in the same house. It was the same gnome. When they got out there, the shed had been torn down. And they tried to talk to the woman who was renting the house, and she wouldn't have anything to do with either of them. They did go around the little sparse neighborhood that was in that area, and the only information they got that they thought was of any use was an older woman who lived in a trailer said that she hears laughing in the middle of the night, and something kept pooping on her living room carpet.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
Oh, no.
And she has no pets.
Oh, my God.
The laughter I could handle.
God, that's horrible. Yeah. Those nasty little gnomes, my goodness. And here we're taught to believe that they're all nice and friendly, but that is not true. Tammy and Charlie can attest to that. Oh, my God. Well, we're going to take a very short commercial break, and we're going to come back and talk about other monsters. We're going to talk about pugwudgies, and we are going to talk about Mothman, which we've heard about before, werewolves, and all kinds of things that go bump in the night. We are with Jason Offutt tonight, chasing American monsters, creatures, cryptids, and hairy beasts. So stay tuned, everybody. You're listening to Supernatural Girls Radio, and we will be right back.
Are you ready for a new experience of freedom and powerful connection? Would you like a positive, effortless change in your life? Then come to CosmicFusion.com, where we offer the most advanced energy clearing and expansion techniques in the world, with a quantum vortex energy to activate your divine blueprint and life's purpose. When your soul leads the way with cosmic fusion and quantum vortex energy, you can break clear of past difficulties and blocks with the power of the source. With cosmic fusion, the source energy does the work for you. It's easy and effortless. Listen to our free meditation right from our Cosmic Fusion website, the Cosmic Code Meditation. Sign up for one of our interactive webinars today. Come to Cosmic Fusion, www.KOSMICfusion.com, to experience an effortless awakening and transformation. Are you ready for an upgrade? Are you ready for a new experience of living in the fifth dimensional magic and powerful connection? Then visit CosmicFusion.com today. CosmicFusion.com.
Your property tax bill. Have you seen it lately? It's frightening. Your property taxes are going up while your home value is going down. It's time to fight back and win. For the real truth about the property tax system, get attorney Pat Quintilian's book, Are You Getting Screwed on Your Property Taxes? How to Find Out and How to Fix It. Attorney Quintilian answers all your questions and gives you the facts you need to fight a property tax bill that is spiraling out of control. You'll also read about what happens to property owners who don't check their property records, only to find out too late they're taxed on square footage, fixtures, and even buildings that they don't own. Is this happening to you? Learn your rights. Buy attorney Pat Quintilian's book today. Are You Getting Screwed on Your Property Taxes? How to Find Out and How to Fix It. Available on Amazon.com.
Astridian is a family of cosmetic products with 98% pure ionized minerals. We combine our science with a blend of essential oils to nourish and take care of your skin's health. How does it work? All Astridian products contain the proprietary redox technology, having the capability of simulating an ionic zinc-copper superoxide dismutase effect. This free radical scavenger currently in your body has been diminished by toxins and the daily stresses of life. It is a perfectly balanced mineral complex that all $200 an hour dermatologists, their professors, and ancient history have proven. Redox technology is a process of reducing the skin's oxidation by transferring electrons from a radical state to a stress-free normal condition. Oxidative stress is a form of cellular aging. and as science has proven, a precursor to disease. The free radical theory of aging states that organisms age because cells accumulate free radical damage over time. Damaged cells are not beautiful, but healthy cells are. The Astridium family is presented in 4 different uses that cover unique benefits to your body. They are the Essential Anti-Aging Series, the Multivitamin Series, Sports Series, and Professional Series. Regain your youth with the power of Astridium. Visit www.astridium.com and inquire. Use the code SUPERNATURAL and receive a 10% discount on your first purchase. Astridium, the beauty of being healthy.
Welcome back, everyone, to Supernatural Girls Radio. I'm your host, Patricia Baker, and I am here with my co-host, Patricia Kirkman, PK, and our guest tonight, Jason Offutt, who is the author of a great new book called Chasing American Monsters, Creatures, Cryptids, and Hairy Beasts. We have a lot more monsters to talk about, but before we go there, I just want to mention again that the property tax book by Patricia Quintilian, I can't recommend it highly enough. Everybody who's a property owner, you need to know you've got until the end of January to read your property record card and find out if you're being overassessed. If you are, you need to file your abatement. All of that has to happen by the end of January. Not a lot of time. Make sure you get Attorney Quintilian's book, Are You Getting Screwed on Your Property Taxes? How to find out and how to fix it. Every property owner needs a copy of this. Believe me, there's a lot of things going on with property taxes you would be very unhappy to hear about. So you've got to get on top of this subject, get familiar with it, and Attorney Quintilian's book will help you figure it out. So here we are back to American monsters. Now, oh my God, there's so many to talk about. Where do we go from here? What's your favorite monster, Jason?
Oh my gosh, that's putting me on the spot. I love all monsters.
Which one is the most intriguing to you?
The most intriguing. We've already talked about this one. The most intriguing to me is one that I think might actually be real, which is Bigfoot.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, there's not just the photographic. I don't believe photographic evidence on anything, because I'm not very good at Photoshop, but I can make something look believable. I teach at a university, and I've seen student projects that use some special effects, and I'm like, well, that looks real. Nice work. So any pictures or video, I don't really trust them. But I mean, just from the forensics evidence and all the reported sightings, that's, man, I'd say very well could be.
Well, we've had people on the show, as I mentioned before, that have had face-to-face encounters with Bigfoot, and they're quite credible witnesses. And again, we're not talking about photography; we're talking about people who've had real-life experiences. One was a psychologist out in Oregon, Dr. J, who's been on the show and has a book about how it changed his life. I mean, that's the other thing about these encounters. They do seem to be very life-changing for people. So it's things that make you go, and do more than that. I mean, I think that this young boy who had the experience of Dogman, I'm sure that has stayed with him forever and always will. It was so unusual. So
all of these things, all of these encounters, it doesn't matter if it's a cryptid or a ghost or a UFO encounter, those things, that kind of defines your life from that point on, because you know. Whether or not anybody else will admit they're real, you yourself know there's something out there that we don't know about, and it got close enough to you to make that impression. So, I've said to lots of people lots of times, I love the paranormal as long as it's happening to somebody else.
I like that idea.
Yeah, I like it when it happens to me. I really enjoy the excitement of touching into another reality, but I can understand your pause when it comes to these things. Now, somebody wrote in a question here about Tommyknockers. That is a new term for me, too. Tell us about Tommyknockers. What are they?
Well, Tommyknockers, the term originated in Cornwall, England, miners in Cornwall, there are a lot of mines there, a lot of miners, started experiencing things like, wow, there's some knocking down this mine shaft. Oh, hey, what happened to my pick? And I just set it down and it's gone. Hey, who took my lunch? So things started disappearing, and they would report seeing diminutive miners, little men with mining gear in the tunnels. And like a lot, like we were talking with the gnomes, they could be vicious. But most diminutive people across the world, elves, goblins, the Tomtar from Sweden, which is a type of gnome. All of these things, if you treat them well and they think you're a decent person, they might pull a joke on you here and there, but it won't be anything deadly. If you're not a good person or you've treated them poorly, expect to be let out of a mine shaft that's going to collapse. So Tommyknockers were kind of a mixed bag. They were either, I heard them, I'm going to die, or I heard them down this tunnel, that means I better leave because there's going to be an accident. That and it didn't end there. The explanation that, and I'm not really sure how this fits in, but the Cornwall miners had an explanation of what Tommyknockers were, and they were the damned, doomed spirits of the men who crucified Jesus. That's who they thought they were. Wow. And anyway, when they started coal mining in Pennsylvania, and then later when they started mining for gold in California in the early to mid 1800s, they got the best miners they could find. They had miners from Cornwall, England, shipped over to the United States so they could, show them how real mining was done. And as with a lot of these monsters, the legends came, with the people. When people migrate to a different country, they just don't bring, their language. They don't bring their, just bring their clothes or a couple family heirlooms. What they bring are their legends. And, a lot of these monsters in my book were European or Indonesian or Chinese or, South American, and they all came to the United States when people migrated here. And that's what happened to the Tommyknockers.
Wow. It's a fascinating story, yeah. And it also brings the question of, are they there to warn you that something is about to happen? Like Mothman, there's always been that question. Let's go to Mothman, because people were wondering, did Mothman cause the collapse of the bridge, or was Mothman there to warn about the collapse of the bridge? So you've encountered some stories about Mothman. Tell us about that, and also other things like Mothman.
Right, and that's a question that still hasn't been answered. What was Mothman doing? This was, I'd have to look this up. I think it was 67 or 68 in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, which was right across the river from Pennsylvania. There was a sighting. A group of young people, two were married, the other two were dating. They were out at the TNT area outside of Point Pleasant. The TNT area was named such as that it manufactured arms and ammunition during the wars. So, but the factories had gotten closed down, and people go out there to drink beer and make out. And that's what these two young couples were doing. They're out there making out. And then one of them noticed that standing close to the car, not like a foot away, but 10, 15 yards away, was a man in shadow, a big man in shadow, but his eyes were red. And this really panicked them. They're like, this isn't right. This isn't real. We got to get out of here. So they backed up to the car and drive and were taking off, and all of a sudden this thing unfurled wings and shot into the air. And they drove. They got fast, tried to get fast out of there, and this Mothman kept up with them. Its wings were seen on people. The people in the car would look out the look out the windows, and they would see the wings tips on either side of the car. So it had a really big wingspan.
Yeah.
And eventually it stopped. Eventually it stopped following them. And they went in and went into town and reported this to the authorities. And when it hit the newspaper, people started going out to the TNT area just to find it. And there were a lot more reports. But there were also reports of it being sighted over the Silver Bridge, which went across the river from Point Pleasant. And there were also reports about that time of men who were really strange. They had extremely pale skin. They wore black suits, black hats, black sunglasses, black tie, white shirt, and drove large black cars. And any person who'd seen the Mothman or had reported in their life seeing a UFO, these men in black, these were some of the first, reported men in black encounters, would go talk to them and say, you didn't see anything, don't talk to people. Well, this is coupled with more Mothman sightings, strange phone calls, strange things happening to the electricity in people's houses, and then it all culminated right before Christmas with the Silver Bridge collapsing. And
yes.
There were a lot of people on the bridge, and I don't remember how many people died, but there were, Christmas presents bobbing up in the river after. It was just really
how sad.
Really sad. And
a terrible disaster.
Right. It was absolutely horrendous. And Mothman sightings, really tailed off after then. However, there have been reports of Mothman-type creatures in various cities right before a disaster like that. I remember when there was a bridge collapse in Minneapolis, I believe, or St. Paul. It was one of the Twin Cities, and somebody had reported seeing a Mothman. In the past couple of years, there have been a couple of dozen Mothman reports from Chicago. Other than
that was just recently too. That there were quite a few reports actually in the Chicago area last year.
Yes, right. Ron Strickler is a paranormal writer, and he was all over that story from day one. He's got a lot of good stuff on that. But yeah, a lot of Mothman sightings. Anything from somebody seeing this winged entity perched on top of a building to a man and his son walking through the park, and he rounded a bend on the trail, and there was like a 7-foot-tall, black with red-eyed figures and wings that was startled when they showed up, and they just shot up in the air and flew away.
Wow.
So I don't know. We didn't have any major catastrophe like the Silver Bridge collapse in Chicago when the thing was seen. But these sightings tend to come up. There's a lot of them, and then they stop. The Chicago sightings have tailed off. And
yeah, they certainly have. You're right. We haven't heard about it in quite some time now.
And something that John Keel, the writer the author who came up with, who reported on Mothman, the first one to report on Mothman, and the one who covered the story while it was happening, came up with the idea of window areas, that there's certain parts of the world that are windows into other places, other dimensions, other times, whatever you want to call it, that sometimes things can come through. And then the windows close, and the things can't come through anymore. And he proposed that for Mothman as well, and that really kind of makes a lot of sense to me.
It does to us as well. Yes, it does make sense because there aren't consistent sightings year after year after year, like you're saying. They taper off, they go away, and they come back years later sometimes. So it's just fascinating, this whole thing. Now, I have to share with you, as I did mention this before the show went live, my favorite story in your book is about the night people. Now, you mentioned portals and windows and other dimensions. Tell our audience about the night people. I just love this story.
Right. I mean, what happens when the sun goes down and we're asleep? What happens? What walks through? What kind of entities? What is that? They're normal. There are animals that's their normal, and there are probably lots of entities that, when the sun goes down, that's their normal. I interviewed a guy named Vern Windsor who grew up in the small town of Orick, Missouri, which is 800 people. I grew up just outside of that town, actually. It's really small. But he said he remembered as a kid, he was supposed to go to bed, and he didn't because kids don't like to go to bed. And he would, he would look out his window and just stare out his window. And he said at night there were people walking the streets, just normal people, dressed like normal people. They'd be mowing yards, drinking a glass of iced tea, people talking, a young couple pushing a stroller with a baby down the street, just normal things. But although they looked human, their eyes were bubbles like fish. They had fish eyes. And he just thought this was fascinating. And in his mind, that he and his family and everybody he knew, they were the day people. And these people who came out and lived their normal lives were the night people. And they would come in and out of the neighbors' houses, just like they owned them, just like they were their houses. So he figured that, when we're awake, we use this house, we use this yard, but when it's night and we're asleep, the night people use our yard. They use our houses.
Wow.
Why not? That was his logic. He thought that was it. And one night he was staring at them, and there were a couple of kids playing in the neighbor's yard, and he was like thinking, I really want to go out and play with these kids. And about the time he thought that, one of the adult night people looked over and saw young Vern's face in the window, staring at them. And at that point, he passed out, and he didn't wake up until the morning. And after that, the night people didn't show up in his hometown anymore. But he said, not that long after, his family moved to the nearby town of Liberty, Missouri, and he saw the night people again. And this time he didn't draw attention to himself because he didn't want to scare them away. But eventually, as he started getting older, he didn't see them anymore.
What an incredible occurrence. And how in his own child mind he wasn't afraid. He just thought this was normal, that they were just using our houses at night. Now, isn't that fascinating? PK, maybe they're using our houses at night. We just don't know it. What in the world?
I hope they know how to clean.
Well, maybe that's why a lot of ghostly activity or shadow people activity happens at night. Maybe it's the night people, and that's all we can see of them.
Yeah, that could very well.
Just throwing that out there.
But the thing is, who can disagree? We don't know, right? Go ahead, PK.
Mm-hmm. This is fascinating. Now I'm gonna. The feeling sometimes that you can feel somebody's presence, and yet there's like a flash that goes past you, and you don't know where it came from, and you could swear to God that there was something there, but then you can't see anything. That's what drives me crazy when those things happen.
Well, maybe now you can ask if it's the night people. I mean, but the thing that is so fascinating too about they had these fish eyes. So he noticed that there was a difference in their appearance, that their eyes were different than ours. So my God, what was he seeing? It's just amazing.
Right, and it didn't freak him out because they were dressed normally. Otherwise, they were normal. They were doing normal things that he saw people doing during the day. So it was, I think, the normality that, made him think that, this is all just normal stuff. They just come out at night.
That is so wild. I love that story. Now, PK, lives in Arizona, and Arizona has its own list of American monsters. Tell us about some of the things she can expect to see in Arizona.
Well, you can't expect to see the Cardinals in the football championship anytime soon. Oh, that was just wrong. I am so sorry. But Arizona has a lot of. Every state's got a lot of things. We've got. I might be pronouncing this wrong. The Mogollon Rim. Is this right?
I don't know, to be honest, because
Mogollon.
Yeah, when I was reading the book, I kept going. I haven't heard it before, and so I was trying to pronounce it correctly, and I'm thinking, he'll know what it is. Well, we both are. Okay.
Okay. Well, this is there was a monster that was seen there. Throughout the ages, but it was first reported in a newspaper in 1903 when a man was walking on this escarpment and saw a monster that was on 2 feet. It was hairy, had long white hair and a beard that went down to its knees, and had vicious claws on its fingers. And there was a dead mountain lion at its feet, and he'd been drinking its blood. And when the monster noticed this man, his name was I.W. Stevens, it stood up straight and picked up a club and swung it at him, threatened him with the club, and he, took off running. And he wasn't the only person to see this. People had seen this throughout the years, and there were reports of Bigfoot. It was also called the Troll. Hikers have run into this thing. One of them caught it drinking from a pool, making noise like a pig, and he said that creature had bluish-gray hair and a human-like face that was all bumpy. And again, it was bipedal, and Bigfoot maybe. Can't imagine it being a wild man if it was tough enough to kill a mountain lion with a club, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you did say he had wicked claws, too, so, oh, my goodness.
Right.
Yeah, that's a fascinating story. So that's an Arizona monster. Now, you also talked about a werewolf story that was fascinating. I believe that happened in Georgia. Is that where that happened with the little girl?
Right. Yes, I thought you were going to talk about the werewolf in Arizona.
Oh, there's one in Arizona.
Right.
Let's hear about that.
Well, a group of late teens were in Tempe, Arizona, and they were at Bible study, and a few of them got kind of bored and excused themselves and went out and started walking around and talking, and they walked out on this golf course, and it was kind of ringed by like palm trees, and all of a sudden one of the palm trees started shaking, and something big and dark dropped out of it, and they were like, "What the heck just happened?" And all of a sudden it stood up and walked slowly toward them in a stereotypical stealthy type manner, and it was a wolf that was about 6 or 7 feet tall, and it was on its hind legs, and it was growling, and they were in the middle of town, and they all screamed and ran back to the house. The guy I talked to, he said he looked back a couple of times, but it wasn't following them, thankfully. But they'd seen what he just described as a werewolf in the middle of Tempe, Arizona.
My God. Well, PK, just don't go out at night.
I'm not going to Tempe, that's for sure.
I'll stay. Wow.
The one in Georgia is one of the more famous werewolf stories in the United States. It involved Emily Burt. When she was, her father, Joel, died in 1948 and left Emily and Sarah, Mildred, His wife's also name was Mildred. He left them all a lot of money. And the mom really wanted her children to get a good education, but she also was a socialite and liked to party, so she sent all the kids away to boarding school in Europe. And later, when the children came home after spending a semester abroad, there was something about Emily that was wrong. She had always been pretty shy, but she was even more shy than she'd ever been. And she was sick a lot. And she said that she was, always tired because she just couldn't sleep. She'd go to sleep, but she'd toss and turn and wake up, and she just couldn't sleep. So the mom was worried, of course, and began watching Emily. And the girl would fall asleep, and then she'd get up and walk out of the house. She'd get up and sleepwalk out of the house and go into the nearby woods. And the mom, when she was awake, started asking Emily about what's going on, but Emily didn't remember anything that had ever happened in the woods. And as the legend goes, her appearance started changing. Her teeth started growing to points. She started to grow hair in strange places. And superstitious people started thinking something was wrong with her. And then farmers started complaining that there was a wolf in the area killing their livestock. And back in the day, there were wolves in Georgia. Red wolves were in Georgia. They're not anymore. And farmers went out to hunt it, but they couldn't find it. And then they started to say, okay, we can't find a wolf. Maybe these animal deaths are caused by a werewolf. And then they waited and waited, and a full moon came, and they went out looking for the beast, and they found it. They found a man-sized wolf walking on two legs and shot it. And it didn't kill it, but it ran away. And Mildred, the mom, heard the shots fired and went to Emily's room, and her daughter was not there. So she, terrified, she ran into the woods and found her daughter lying unconscious on the dirt, and she was bleeding. So she took Emily home and sent for the doctor, and Emily had been shot. So people started thinking Emily was the werewolf.
Oh, my.
And, just as soon as Emily was healed enough to travel, her mom sent her to Europe again. And when Emily was gone, while she was gone, the animal death stopped. And when she returned, they didn't start again. And Emily later became a successful business person, and she died when she was 70. But for a while there, the people of that small town in Georgia thought she was a werewolf. And, she could have been.
I could see that. Yeah, she could have been. I mean, it did seem to. You could draw that conclusion based on a number of facts that you just presented with the story. It's just fascinating. Yeah. Poor Emily.
Well, and the mom sent her back to Europe hoping she would be cured of her lycanthropy. And, apparently she saw somebody when she was in Europe, so maybe she was cured.
It's quite possible because, like you said, it all came to an end. Gosh.
Yeah, but
oh, my God, what a great story. Just amazing stuff. Now, here we are in Massachusetts. That's where I am. And there's quite a few monsters here. And somebody just wrote in and asked about the pug budgies. Tell us about those creatures.
I am absolutely intrigued with the little people, like the gnomes. That really intrigued me as well. But not just them. Reports of small humans that have warred with people, have had wars with us. I mean, they are all over the world. I've already mentioned the Tomtar, the kobolds. Hawaii's got the Minahuni. In Iceland, they are so. They believe so much in elves that when they're building roads and buildings, if there is a landmark like a boulder that they think elves live in, they build a road around it.
Around it, yes.
Around it, yeah. They won't put a building on a spot that they think elves live on because they don't want to anger them. And then there was the legend in Indonesia of the Ebu Gogo, which means grandmother who eats anything. The natives, the natives had said, for centuries upon centuries, there were these small people who would sneak into their villages and steal children and eat them. And this was dismissed as myth until on the island of Flores in 2004, in a cave, a bunch of skeletons of small people, about 3 feet tall, were found. And they were full-grown human people. And they were labeled Homo forensis, again in 2004, and they were dubbed the Hobbits because they were, the science has classified them as an offshoot of the race of us, but they're just really short. So, these people existed. These small people existed. Why can't the others?
Yes, that's true.
Well,
right. So let's look at the Pukwudgie. And I'm also going to bring up I am not going to be able to pronounce this name, Wamatagunis, I believe. It's a little person in the Delaware Indian legend. Anyway, the Pukwudgie and the Wamatagunis are small people. They're maybe about 2 feet tall. They play pranks on the big people. Sometimes they lead them out and get them lost in the woods. But if they're angered by the big people, they might lead them out into the woods and, have them, trick them into falling off a cliff to their death. Or if they're really angry, they can turn invisible, and they will also shoot big people with poison arrows, which, of course, kills them. So that's the Pukwudgie. That's also the Delaware Indians legend. That's also a legend from the Sioux and the Omaha Indians of South Dakota. There's a place called Spirit Mound that has 2 foot tall people that they call Brittle Devils, but behave exactly the same as the Pukwudgies. They're the same. They're the same size. They will play jokes unless you anger them, and then they will go to war with you. They can disappear, and they will kill you with magic arrows. Right? Then also, there's another legend of the Shoshone Indian tribe of Wyoming. Has another name I'm not going to pronounce correctly. Naimuragar, which is the same thing. 2 to 3 feet tall, can turn invisible, have poison arrows, and can play jokes if they're in a good mood, but they will kill you if they're not. Why are all of these stories the same? It wasn't really easy to go from Massachusetts to Wyoming.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is one of those things that makes me think, if it's the same story in a wide area, why isn't it true?
I think it is, and I know that the Pukwudgie here has been spotted repeatedly in the Bridgewater Triangle area, where there's been a lot of things seen, not just the Pukwudgie, but I've heard stories, and we've had people on the show talking about them, that they can be pretty nasty, and like you mentioned, leading people to get lost in the woods or trying to coerce. Somebody's walking their dog, then they're trying to get their dog to kind of follow them in the wrong direction. So it does seem like they're a bit more nefarious in some of what they do. And then, like you said, they can also turn deadly with their little poison arrows. So they're not to be messed with, that's for sure. You don't want to make them. I don't know what makes them mad, though. What would make them mad?
Well, I mean, just one of the things is infringing on their territory. That is a problem with about anybody. One of the issues specific with the Pukwudgies is when the world was created, the giant that created the world, after he created the Pukwudgies, created humans and favored the humans over the Pukwudgies. So the Pukwudgies have been jealous. since the beginning of time. That's another reason.
Okay, so they're just normally pissed off given the history, which doesn't make it good. So yeah, but there are certain areas where I guess the Native American tradition and oral tradition has passed down stories and said stay away from these areas, that you may encounter this and it won't be pleasant. So have been
and of course, when the
that.
Europeans started coming over here, they ignored every single bit of that, and in some cases, really paid the price.
Right, that's right. Now, there's also something you talk about called the Black Dog of Hanging Hills. What is that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a legend of a black dog. That's an omen. This dog, whenever it appears, the legend has it, when it appears the first time, it's a good thing. You see this dog, the dog could lead you, if you're lost, would lead you out of trouble. But if you come back, things get worse. Once you see this dog the third time, it will most certainly trick you into falling off of a cliff.
Ooh.
So it's a good thing to see once, but if you see it once, you should probably not go back to the hills again.
Okay, well, that's good advice. Now we are forewarned with that. Oh, my goodness, there's so much to learn about these monsters, so you don't make them mad. Gosh. What about black-eyed kids? Now, that I didn't see in your book, but you must have heard stories about them.
Well, I wrote a lot about black-eyed kids back right before they started getting popular. As a matter of fact, I was starting the outline of a book on black-eyed kids, and my wife said, Jason, all these things you write about don't bother me, except the black-eyed kids. So please don't write a book on them, because if one shows up at my door, it's your butt. So, yeah, knowing when to pick my battles, I did not write a book on them. But, yeah, the black-eyed kids are fascinating and absolutely terrifying. They appear as generally teenagers, 14, 16 years old, something like that, although I've gotten reports of black-eyed toddlers and young adults who have been black-eyed kids. What they appear to be, other than absolutely normal, is they're usually dressed a little bit off. They're usually dirty, have bad breath. Mm-hmm. They might be dressed, 10, 15, 30 years out of date. They will approach somebody who is and usually in twos, usually, not always, but usually in twos. They will approach somebody who's alone in a quiet, lonely place. The very first encounter that was publicized was journalist Brian Bethel back in the late 1990s. He lives in Texas, and he had pulled up in a strip mall in front of his cable. Well, because newspapers, generally, if you've got a morning paper, your deadline's like midnight, 11 o'clock or midnight. So hours are weird. So he got off work, and he went to pay his cable bill at the strip mall, and he was sitting in his car writing a check, and he was just going to drop it in the night deposit box. And it was kind of well lit because there was a movie theater, a little bit, in the same strip mall, and the marquee was all bright. And so he's writing it out. He had his window down just a little bit, maybe a couple inches, and all of a sudden he noticed there was somebody standing outside his window. And he turned and looked, and it was a 16-year-old kid standing there in a hoodie. And that kind of bothered him because all of a sudden the kid was just there. But he said, what do you want? And the kid said, well, my friend and I are going to go see a movie. And he told him what the movie was. And he said, but we don't have any money. Would you please take us to my house so I can get some money? And Brian looked over at the movie marquee, and the movie this kid said that he and his buddy were going to go see had started like an hour and a half ago. So that immediately he was suspicious. And this kid had another kid standing behind him a few feet. And Brian said, no, I mean, I'm not going to take you anywhere. And the kid said, "Oh, come on, man. You can take us someplace. Please let us in your car." And that made him even more nervous, but for some reason, he wanted to unlock the door and let the kids in. And he even caught himself moving his hand toward the door lock before he stopped himself. And he looked up, and he was all of a sudden, terror gripped him because he noticed that this kid's eyes were black. There were no whites. There's no iris. It was just totally black, like a shark's eye. And he also noticed that the younger kid who was with him had been moving himself behind no, he wasn't behind the car yet, but toward the back. It looked like what predators do when there's more than one. One draws the attention and the other one goes around for the attack. He said that's what it felt like. And he was so terrified, he just slammed the car in reverse and shot the hell out of there. But he said as we whipped the car around, he looked in his rearview mirror, and there was no place the kids could have gone, but they were gone. And he just left and went home. And I interviewed him a couple of years ago, and he said, and he still lives and works in that town, and every time he drives by that strip mall, it just sends shivers down his back.
God, that's terrifying.
What are they? What are these kids? These kids.
That's the question.
Right. They act like predators. They speak in a manner that is a maturity that's much more mature than their age shows. It should be. They demand, you have to let me in, whether it's in a car, whether it's into your house, let me into your house. Or I interviewed a guy who was walking home one night, and these kids approached him. They were about 10 and 12, asking, "Can you take us to this cemetery?" And he knew these kids were wanting to get him alone, and he wouldn't do it. But, I mean, so, yeah, they're mature for their age. They're demanding. They get angry when you tell them no, and they have to be allowed to be inside.
That's like a vampire thing.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a Hollywood vampire, though. Being invited, you have to be invited. That's a Hollywood thing. Yeah.
But this is a real black-eyed kid thing. You have to invite them in.
Right.
Hopefully they're smart enough not to.
I literally interviewed people from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 continents who encountered these, and so I mean it's a worldwide thing as well. But I really haven't talked to anybody who's let them inside. So what happens when that happens?
Yeah, we've heard a couple of terrible stories about that, and the people end up getting sick and things like that are tremendously unpleasant. But yeah, there's been so much question about all of a sudden these things coming on into view and doing what they're doing, showing up and demanding entry, and being very threatening and having totally black eyes. It's a very frightening phenomenon, and nobody can give us a good explanation. Nobody knows what they are, but we've heard theories that they might be failed hybrids, that, things like that. They're definitely not children, and people need to be aware of that.
I had one guy contact me, and I didn't communicate with him very much because, frankly, what he told me was pretty terrifying. He claimed to be an adult black-eyed person, and his race lives amongst us, and that he said we're all misunderstood, and we're from sort of the same, the same tree. You are from Adam in the Bible, and my race is from the serpent in the Bible, in Genesis.
Wow.
And at that point, I'm like, I really don't want to talk to you anymore.
Yeah. And your wife wouldn't be happy either. Well, Jason, unfortunately, we've come to the end of our time. Yeah, really. She gave you the ultimatum. We've come to the end of a wonderful evening with you. Everybody, make sure you get this book. It's terrific. Chasing American Monsters, Creatures, Cryptids, and Hairy Beasts. Thanks so much, Jason. Please stay in touch. We'd love to have you back again. And everybody will be back next week with another great show. Until then, we'll see you on the Blue Highway. Stay safe out there, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for another radio adventure with Supernatural Girls.
Jason, thank you. That was a terrific show. Really appreciate it.
Hey, I had a great time. Y'all asked great questions, and it was just a lot of fun. I am so sorry there were so many technical problems at the beginning.
That's okay.
I figured out what it was because I haven't been entered. I haven't been entered on, or I haven't been interviewed on my cell phone before. I usually do it on my headset through Skype.
Right. Sure.
But I had to, because you couldn't hear me, so I had to hold the microphone up to my mouth. But then I couldn't hear you until I put the phone back to have the receiver part next to my ear, and I kept hanging up on you with my cheek. So I finally figured out that, I should probably go get my headphones and just hold the microphone up to my mouth, and that solved everything.
Oh, gosh. Well, that did, and thank you for figuring it out. Sometimes we have audio trouble. And sometimes the board is very unstable. I couldn't get on with Skype myself, which was unusual. I had to use my cell phone, which usually doesn't happen. But I appreciate you making that heroic effort to get it to work. So thank you. It was delightful. What a great, great interview you are. So please keep us posted. The book is tremendous, and we'll continue to promote it for you.
Well, I really, really appreciate that. I am right now working on Chasing Canada's Monsters.
Oh, good. Then we'll have you back for that one. Would you please keep us posted?
I definitely will. I had a really good time. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Again, you're a great guest, great book, and we'd love to have you back again. So take care. Stay away from the black-eyed kids, and we'll see you soon, I hope.
All right. I hope so, too. Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye, Jason.
Bye. Bye.